My name is Jennifer Hunt, and I am the owner of Bubble and Fizz. I make handmade bath and body products.
I'm Great Camilletti. I'm a local writer and filmmaker. I manage and I founded the website lampinhand.com, which is an art site which is dedicated for storytelling for social good. So on that site I share essays, art, and inspiration for other social entrepreneurs. And there I work with 2 other local artists.
My name is Jenny Mitchell, and I'm a local musician, I'd say. That's sort of the forefront thing for the number of years I've put into that. But I'm also a school bus driver and karaoke host, and I work at my dad's antique store, Disarray Antiques. Sort of make ends meet by lots of different little things. And then most recently, owner of the Golden Bus, which is a 40-foot ex-transit bus that I've converted to be a mobile art space.
My background is marketing and design, and in the past I've worked for various manufacturers in home decor and giftware, and I'm currently in marketing and sales for giftware. I have a territory across southwestern Ontario. So based upon the history of what I've been doing, that's what's inspired me to start up localladiesca. I'm just in the startup stages right now, sourcing product, but having worked for big companies that actually use factories offshore or create products that really aren't that healthy for you and sort of fit into that disposable society mindset, I want to find something that's local that people can use and is healthy and good for them and also supports the local economy.
So I'm the owner and natural cosmetic artisan behind Nightflower Natural Hair and Beauty Collection. And basically it's a line of 100% natural and organic handcrafted beauty products. I make them right in my kitchen by hand. And it's something that I've been doing for about a decade. And yeah, I've been selling locally at local markets in Southern Ontario, and then I also have an e-commerce website at nightflower.ca where I sell my products. Working from home, especially as I'm working in my kitchen, making things by hand, it's hard to create like a line and a balance, and certainly you're kind of always thinking things in your head. This has to be done. I get orders coming in through the day, and I really try to make sure that my e-commerce system is smooth and that people receive their products quickly, because that's something that I think people like. I certainly do. So knowing when to shut off sometimes is difficult, and especially because I do have a young son at home and they require a lot of attention. I do have to, sometimes give him an activity, work really hardcore on my business tasks, and then put it away. And then I have to really try to work on time management and organization. When he's down, that's when I can get a lot of stuff done.
As an entrepreneur, I find it really hard to balance life and work. Up until recently, I had a full-time job aside from my freelance business and my website, and I would go to work like 9 to 5, sometimes 9 to 6, sometimes 8 to 6, depending on the week. And I would come home and I would like instantly start working on my own stuff, like my own art. I would be working on the website at night. I would be having meetings or interviews with different artists for the site, and then on the weekend I'd go to film shoots, and so I was basically always working, and I found it really hard to balance. And even now, when I'm not working, I thought I would have so much time. I don't. I still feel like I'm working full time, so that is something that I really struggle with, and I really want to be intentional moving forward with how I find balance.
There's this really great one that's just like a photo, and it lists like this schedule of like work from home versus like office. And it's like every 15 minutes taking a break and doing like something, but then it's like 11:30, you're still working, and breakfast is cake, and it's like it's exactly like that. I work longer hours or like into later hours than anybody I know, other than other people that work from home, but it's not. It's sometimes impossible to tell at the end of the day what I even got done, or what was business, what was personal. Like, they're so blended. I think that the way that I've thought that I could maybe make my own project sustainable is to have my interests and personal life and business kind of all be one and the same. I'd been attaching gold for years to things I was doing even before getting the bus here, because I knew I wanted a golden bus. When I knew it might be a year or two before the bus came to town, I had a project downtown called Golden Community Music, where I ran a recording studio in front of City Hall and had all these instruments out by the splash pad, and anybody could just come and play the instruments, and I recorded them and made albums of it, and had an album art station. And I called it Golden Community Music because I figured, like, at some point maybe the recording piece will be bigger than one of these other ones, so at least gold will tie it together. And then I'm the host of Golden Throats Karaoke, and so I've just been adding gold to sort of try to bind these things that I work on, because because they're so inseparable, but also I think at any given time I feel like one of them might pay the bills more than the others, but that they all deserve credit for how important they are in my life and how much time they take up on my end. And so if I tie them all together, they're all kind of getting carried by the strongest one at any given time. But yeah, because of that, there really isn't anything that I do that isn't in some way connected to the rest of them, like short of watching television sometimes. You know?
Yeah, it is hard. I haven't found the end point of my day, and I keep telling my husband that I need to, but it's hard when there's so many other things going on, and my business is based out of my home, so it's easy for me just to go down to my workshop and do a little bit here and there, but I really do need to give myself a set schedule. I haven't found that balance yet, and I am working towards doing that. It's hard. You always want to, when you're an entrepreneur and you're building a business, it's hard to separate your time because you keep wanting to build and build and build. So when you have 5 minutes to get on Facebook and write a post for your business, then you're going to do that. So it's making sure you don't do that like at the dinner table.
That's interesting that you asked that, because no, it's all one big it's all one big jumble. You just do when you can do, you work. And I find being an entrepreneur, I'm working weekends, I'm working evenings, whenever I can. So yeah, there's no real separation a lot of times. It's just all the time. I definitely do find time for myself every day, and it's especially to spend with my child. That's important. You never want to lose sight of your personal life, for sure. And so yes, I do make time for that, definitely.
I would probably say that I struggle with that in general, just being a mom, because it's kind of an all-encompassing role. But I do try to spend time reading and kind of pampering myself, and just taking time for like a breather each day to think about what I want to accomplish. And a lot of my self-care happens at night when he's gone to sleep, where I can just have that time to myself and either work on the business or watch a movie or just kind of relax.
I think that self-care is so important for entrepreneurs, and in my own life, if I can do a little brag, I'd say that I'm kind of like a self-care champion, but I would say that's only because of my life experience. So growing up with a disability and growing up chronically ill meant that I was sick a lot, so I had to learn how to take care of myself, otherwise I was gonna just go to the hospital that much more. And I actually, instead of going to sports camp or arts camp, I actually went to arthritis camp, and they would teach us things like energy conservation, and like we would have like little seminars on like water aerobics instead of like making like picture frames out of macaroni or like playing dodgeball. So I was lucky that I was able to learn from a painful life experience. So I would say that in my daily life, I like to do a lot of different things for self-care, whether it's quiet time. I think it's really important to give your brain space to think. So turning off TV, turning off radio, turning off podcasts, turning off my computer, not looking at screens, and having analog time is also really important for my personal, spiritual, emotional health, but then also just my creative life, because when you give yourself time and space, instead of be constantly stimulated by like social media or other resources. You actually give yourself time to develop ideas and to think about things, because your brain is just naturally gonna work its magic when you're not being lulled by Netflix.
Well, I definitely suffer from ADD. Not that that I've ever gone to a doctor about it, but I know that I do. And so school bus driving, as much as this doesn't sound like self-care, it was hugely meditative. It's like every day I had to get up at a certain time, and every afternoon I had to break my day with this like completely unrelated, very straight ahead task. So now that I'm just a spare bus driver, I've actually been missing that time where I have one responsibility and I can actually not do anything else. So driving and by extension going on tour are two of the most healthy things I can do for like giving myself over to not doing 10 things at once. And so I started gardening, and so I've tried to make a habit now that when I wake up in the morning and my brain is this messy confusion of all of the different things I could get done in the day, I just go out and I pick the new weeds. And I inspect the plants, I prop them up if I need to, I might give them a bit of water. We have this massive raspberry bush and I go and pick the day's raspberries. And I just kind of make myself do something that I can't argue, like there is no multitasking with raspberry picking. And so it's a bit of time for my thoughts to sort of settle and approach the day from a reasonable place. And there's lots of really great resources. There's this one that it's about mental health for people having like anxiety or depression, but I find it works really well for this sort of ADD brain fog too. And it'll just be simple things like, have you had a glass of water? Have you eaten a meal? Change your clothes. It's a big one when working from home. It's like rolling out of bed and now you're on a computer in your pajamas, but it's like, no, take the time. Put on clothes, and even if you're wearing clothes, if it starts to feel overwhelming, put on fancy clothes, like dress for the day all by yourself in some sort of fancy suit or something. And I find like little tricks like that, like just stopping and taking time, even if it seems silly, it's hugely helpful for giving myself like a much needed break. It can be really hard to give yourself breaks when you're working for yourself. And so little things like that, even simple ones like a walk around the block, or finding another human being. Like, that's also not going to sound like self-care, but involving other people in my project, even in small ways, it adds an accountability that I hold myself to because I want to do right by them and I don't want to let them down and I want to meet the deadlines we set, but it also allows for me to say things out loud that otherwise I'm solving in my head, and sparing my partner and my family from getting the barrage of all of my concepts. So having like a co-worker, even in the smallest way, just somebody to have a coffee with even once a week to sort of check in and bounce ideas is incredible. Like, it's such a relief. And then it shares the responsibility a bit. Not that I do too much responsibility sharing, but more than anything, it shares the victory that I feel like can be really hard for other people to really understand how much work went into something that to them just looks like it's what you meant to do. And of course it is, but it can be a huge victory depending on how many challenges there were. So self-care for me sometimes means getting a coffee with like a coworker friend that I've, given that role.
I take a lot of baths and I go to the gym. Sometimes it's just watching a movie. Trying to get away from everything. But it's important to take care of yourself because you can't do much if you're run down and, tired all the time. Again, it's hard. It's like I've not gone to a lot of things because I need to do this or that. So it's finding the balance of my time. If I don't balance out my time, then I don't know when I have time available for other people. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
So it's like if you go to a 9 to 5, you're working 9 to 5, and then after you can go out with your friends or do family things. But when you work for yourself, you have to designate your time for it and know when to not do business things and what's important.
Well, my partner, who we actually just bought a house together, like literally today it closes, which is super exciting. And yeah, so him and I have been together a few years, and we just have extremely compatible interests. So yeah, when it comes to like professional weirdos or whatever, like he makes music and I make music. We both love karaoke, as silly as that sounds for how much it's in my life. That's an important one. But he also is totally one of those people that if you told him he couldn't do something, he's probably going to try harder, right? Like he's even more stubborn than I would sort of say that I am. But yeah, I think I recognized early on that I was not going to have a very successful life with a really traditional person with like really closed ideas as to what is success, or like if it was somebody motivated by money, for example, that would be a deal breaker. And if it was somebody that couldn't conceive of things that haven't existed before, that would be too hard for me. So I feel like just by hitting certain key points of it's not like we have to like exactly the same things, but we need to understand an alternative version of success and be able to like fully trust each other in terms of like the depth, the growth period. That's the scariest part, right? Like the front end of entrepreneur, when there is no money and it's all ideas and possibly lots of failure. If you are with somebody that is at least either familiar with that model or trusts you enough to believe you that there's another side to it, and taking turns. So maybe one person is like the boring money winner by having some job that is reliable but not as interesting, and then they can support you while you're doing some sort of job building, and then if you get a really good one, then maybe you get to like let them quit or redefine their hours. And so that's been like the most successful way for me keeping my projects going, and so far it's been really great. And to be honest, one of the biggest motivators for me is the idea of me being successful enough that he doesn't have to have a crappy job. Like that's on my mind all the time, but in like a really positive way. Like it's this exciting thing, especially now that we bought a house. But like imagine if we're people who bought a house and we both do really weird things, like that would just be the biggest victory, right?
As an artist, I do struggle to maintain balance between work and relationships. There's this misbelief within myself that I do identify and I need to work on. But the idea that in order to be successful at something, you need to do it every day, right? Like you gotta hustle, you gotta get your 10,000 hours in. And as a perfectionist, a recovering perfectionist, I find that like I want to be great at everything. Like I want to have good friendships. I want to have like a beautiful relationship with my partner. I want to like love my family, and just I want to be good at my job. I want to be successful. So because I want like all these different things in my head, that kind of from a young age it internalizes that like you got to do everything every day. So for me, finding balance is hard because I never want to step back, and I never want to take a break from any of the different trajectories that I'm going in, whether they're professional or social. So for me, one of the things that I try to think about for balance is seasons, right? So there's a season for this, a season for that, and I think that I've learned that as I've grown up. So now that I'm older, I'm more confident in my relationship. So even if I'm not seeing, my best friends every week, I still know that they love me and that they're my best friends. And when I see them, even if it's after a few weeks, we just pick up where we left off. So I have more trust. But I think that comes from me just being older and understanding more.
I haven't had a problem with that too much. I have my core group of people that are very close to me, and just in terms of organizing my business tasks, that I would get those done before I kind of socialize during the day, and because I can do it from home, that really makes it helpful. If I have to make creams and stuff like that, I usually do that in the evening when my son's asleep by preparing shipments and things like that. I'll do that in the morning, and then have my social time in the afternoons.
It is tough, especially when you're first starting out with a business. You definitely want to spend as much time as you can to make it successful. But again, I do try and make time for for friends, my relationship and my son. I definitely have to do that, or you just lose all. Sorry, I lost my train of thought again.
problem.
You lose all life balance, basically. It's not a great work-life balance if you don't find time for the people that you love.